The climate crisis is threatening more and more people's livelihoods all over the world. Here in the high north, reindeer herders like Sanna Vannar are struggling to survive.
There's just too much snow and ice. The reindeer can't find food.
People from all over the world are threatened by the changing climate, like lavender farmer Maurice Feschet. The affected people don't know each other, yet some of them take an unusual step together. 10 families and a youth organization are suing the European Parliament.
Obviously, I have nothing more to lose. My fight is mainly for future generations.
They feel abandoned and demand a decisive correction of the existing climate goals of Europe.
So far, it has been the politicians' turn, and they have largely failed, and now the courts have to sort it.
There has never been such a lawsuit against Europe before, but can it succeed? Sweden, north of the Arctic Circle. This is the home of Sanna Vannar. The 24-year-old is reindeer herder and belongs to the Sami, the indigenous people of Northern Europe. Together with other families from Portugal, Kenya or the Fiji Islands, she has sued the EU. Sanna can't see any other way. Her traditional reindeer husbandry is threatened by the climate crisis. The reindeer used to find food under the snow. That has changed.
Sometimes in winter there's a lot of snow. Then it rains on the snow, which creates a layer of ice. The reindeer can't get through this ice in order to find their food.
Another plaintiff comes from the south of France. This is how the lavender fields look like there. The seasons have shifted. It's hot for longer periods, and the soil is so arid that the plants dry up. Maurice Feschet is a fourth-generation lavender farmer. In the last 10 years alone, his harvest has dropped by 65%.
For 15 years, we've had the problem that we either have too much water or a great drought. But we have to move on somehow to be able to supply our customers. We don't have much choice.
In France, they call the 73-year-old le grand-père inquiet, the concerned grandfather. With this lawsuit, he wants to ensure that climate protection is strengthened to such an extent that his children and grandchildren can also grow lavender in Provence.
Whether we stand a chance or not, we will definitely keep going, because it's worth it. Even if it is only to achieve the goal of fueling the debate on this subject. That alone makes it worth fighting.
He is the lawyer for the climate crisis. Gert Winter was one of the initiators of the legal dispute, on an honorary basis. His motivation is the future of his grandchildren. He filed the lawsuit on the 23rd of May 2018, and he knows what he's talking about. Gert Winter is professor at the Research Center for European Environmental Law in Bremen. 3 years ago, he began preparing the case.
It must be ascertained by the court now that people are affected in their fundamental rights and that politics must react more quickly.
The first hurdle? To even get started, it's important that the European Court allows the lawsuit at all. The only plaintiffs from Germany come from the island of Langeoog, a restaurant right by the sea. Michael and Michael Recktenwald live and work here. They are also worried about the climate crisis and are demanding a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by at least 50% by 2030, instead of the 40% envisaged.
There's the moral aspect of simply saying that everyone can do something. Take a look around. You can also see the climate change. Do something, less plastic, less car, more public transport, etc. And there is the legal side. We claim that the climate targets that the EU has set are not sufficient.
Rising sea levels could one day threaten life on the East Frisian Islands.
Ich leg's aber schon am Grill, ne? Hast du den an? Ja.
But upon what grounds can families like the Recktenwalds file a lawsuit against the European Union?
We're suing for the basic rights to free housing, free jobs and free health. All these 3 points are threatened by the climate crisis. If this island sinks, I have neither a free choice of residence nor a free choice of job. And if the water becomes salty, it could also affect my health.
Michael Recktenwald wants to be a pioneer and starts with himself in the kitchen.
Regionality is one of the means to reduce CO2 emissions. Long journeys also mean a lot of CO2. So, of course, this is one of the very important aspects for us in purchasing. As regionally as possible and as organically as possible.
Northern Sweden. Jokkmokk is located in the province of Norrbotten, only a few kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. The nearby Arctic is one of the world's regions which is most affected by the climate crisis. Reindeer herder Sanna Vannar is out in the mountains, about 2 hours away from her hometown. In the last few days, temperatures increased to above 10 degrees Celsius. That's unusual for autumn. Together with other herders, she wanted to pick up the reindeer from the mountains, to gather them in the enclosure and then take them to the winter pasture near Jokkmokk by truck. But the animals have disappeared. Because of the warmth, they have retreated to the mountains. Although reindeer live in the wild and can move freely, they always have an owner. Markings in the ear help the shepherds to identify which ones are their animals. For Sanna, it's now time to wait and see.
You never know. It depends on how much snow is on the mountain and like where the reindeer are and where they want to go. So maybe next week, maybe in 3 weeks or maybe in 2 months.
Sanna is a Sami, Europe's only indigenous people who live in the north of Scandinavia and Russia. The reindeer play a special role in Sami culture. Sanna's ancestors already worked with reindeer. She grew up with them. She can't imagine leaving her homeland to work in a big city. Due to the climate crisis, though, her life and work are getting more and more difficult.
It's also difficult psychologically to see that there's nothing we can do about it. If it were something we would have caused ourselves, it wouldn't be so difficult. But I know this isn't just our fault. What others do puts our reindeer at risk.
Sanna prepares everything for the cold season. Once the reindeer are on the winter pastures, she might have to feed them lichen. Today she's on her way to a forest area where she can collect this essential food. She needs to store the lichens for the winter. She does a lot of such work together with her parents.
There is more over there by the line.
To collect the lichen, they have chosen a forest area in which there are few reindeer. When it comes to who owns the land and who is allowed to use it, there is always trouble in Sweden between the Sami and the government. For Sanna, all this is simply her home.
It's difficult to explain why you like this life so much, because it's something you grew up with. That's just the life I know. This is why it's hard to explain the reasons for why it's so important to me. Taking care of the reindeer is more than just a job. It's more like a way of living, something you choose to do all day, all year round.
Because there are problems not only in winter. According to reports by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, temperatures in the nearby Arctic are rising twice as fast as the global average. Last summer there were extensive forest fires in Sweden, the effects of a climate crisis. Even fire brigades from Germany drove to the north to help. Forest fires almost never occurred here in the past. In any case, much has changed for the Sami.
Most of the time, the older ones have been able to identify what the weather will be like. They knew at this time of year the weather would be one way or the other. But this knowledge doesn't work anymore. And even the words that describe different type of weather can no longer be used, because some weather conditions no longer exist.
In the evening, the youth association Sami is meeting in Jokkmokk. Sanna is their president. Today, Markus Raschke from Protect the Planet is visiting. They represent the environmental organizations that support the plaintiffs in the lawsuit.
Every human being has the right to shape their way of life as she or he wishes. And politicians have the task of setting the framework conditions in such a way that people can do that. All plaintiffs demand accountability of those politicians who make the decisions at EU level at this point to do their jobs.
Sanna, along with the association, filed the suit. Most of the Sami youth living in Sweden are members of this group.
There are different ways, and we've tried many of them. We tried to talk, but nothing happens. That's why we thought we'd test this way and see if anything happens.
But can or should one even sue the EU? Sociologist Harald Welzer is also dealing with this question. He describes the climate crisis as an underestimated threat to human coexistence.
Every social movement is a minority movement in the beginning, and it will go up in smoke or remain a subculture if no members of the majority society take over this concern of the social movement. This must simply go beyond direct concern. People in Central Europe, in non-island locations, don't seem to be concerned. But they have to understand that it's a general matter to change the form of economic activity and to establish a truly efficient climate policy.
The plaintiffs say the EU is not doing what it can, and that's not right. Langeoog is one of 7 East Frisian islands in the North Sea, situated in the middle of the Waddenzee World Heritage Site. It is considered a tourist magnet with its 14-kilometer-long sandy beach. Maike and Michael Recktenwald grew up on the island. Storm tides have always been part of their lives. They know, although there aren't more in recent decades, the water now rises higher. The sea level has already risen by around 20 centimeters in the last 100 years and will continue to rise if nothing changes.
In this area, the whole beach was washed up. The sand was fetched from sandbanks far out and brought here by special ships. And that was supposed to be food for the storm, so to speak, so that the storm tides don't attack the dune chain at the back. They built a sand base in front of it so that they attack it. As you can see here, they did already slide. And I would say the North Sea got about 10-15 meters this winter.
When we were kids, this wasn't the one thin dune chain that exists now, but there's already a lot of dune missing.
Break-offs, storms, higher storm tides, all this worries the Recktenwalds. More and more dikes and dunes have to be strengthened. The state of Lower Saxony alone pays over 60 million euros a year for this. What's special about Langeoog is that the dunes protect the drinking water supply here. 5 of the East Frisian islands are supplied by a natural freshwater reservoir, an underground reservoir fed by precipitation. If sea levels continue to rise, salt water could eventually enter the reservoir and make the groundwater undrinkable. In addition to sea level rise, the rising temperatures in the North Sea are a particular problem on the coast. According to research, the sea heats up twice as fast as other oceans. This has consequences for fish stocks. Sven Klette also notices this in his shop.
Danke.
Thank you. Enjoy it. In the last years, we had more goatfish, also a fish from southern climes. Sometimes he gets a whole box while fishing. Goatfish don't really belong here.
Maike inherited the house from her parents. She mainly takes care of the hotel, Michael of the restaurant. Many guests come to the certified organic hotel every year. It's also becoming increasingly important for holidaymakers to do something for climate protection. Together, Maike and Michael Recktenwald have decided to run their business sustainably. Thus, they want to make their contribution so that the nature of the island remains preserved also for following generations.
The furniture is made of solid wood, which is FSC certified. The joinery works with solvent-free varnishes, etc. We have organic cotton bed linen. The same goes for the bathrobe.
Maike and Michael Recktenwald are among the climate plaintiffs, because in Germany the North Sea islands are the first to be affected if sea levels continue to rise. They want the EU to be more consistent in its efforts to prevent global warming from increasing any further. And that's also the topic in Berlin. Mujib Latif is one of the best-known climate researchers in Germany. He also deals with the global rise in temperature. According to the Paris Climate Agreement, this should be limited to 1.5 degrees Celsius if possible.
It's about time that we do something, but at the moment, unfortunately, global emissions are still rising. But we could still manage to actually meet the Paris targets if we really did pursue ambitious climate protection now.
But if all states continue as before, the 1.5-degree target will not be reached. According to current forecasts, the Earth could even warm up by 4 or 5 degrees in the long term. Mujib expects this to have serious consequences.
We simply know that complex systems, and the Earth system is a complex system, have certain limits, certain thresholds. And if you exceed these thresholds, you trigger processes that can no longer be stopped and that cannot be reversed for a long time, perhaps even irreversible. And that's what it's all about in the end. It may sound ridiculous, 1.5 or 2 degrees, but somewhere in between there might be such a tipping point, and then we could cross that tipping point.
Brussels, the European Parliament. In March 2019, climate plaintiffs met for the first time with a number of delegates. Sanna Vannar has also come. She wanted to talk about why she has complained and what she wants from the politicians.
I somehow have to believe in a future, because if I don't believe that we will manage to keep the Sami way of living, then I might as well stop right now. Why should I stand here and fight?
For meetings like these, Sanna wears traditional Sami clothes. She wants to show that she belongs to an indigenous culture and that she's proud of it. The lawsuit has been going on for almost a year now. Sanna has become accustomed to the media hype. 5 EU delegates had come to the meeting.
But it's morally wrong, in my view.
There was no official EU statement on the ongoing proceedings, and so it remained an informative discussion between plaintiffs and politicians. Nothing concrete.
So I think it'll help, certainly having a good result in the
The EU is not doing enough considering the scientific evidence we have on climate change. We need to do more. On the other hand, the EU is still a front runner in the world. There is hardly any other region in the world that does as much as the EU. But those who suffer from climate change cannot be comforted.
Aber die unter dem Klimawandel leiden, die kann das nicht trösten.
Like the plaintiff in the south of France, Grignon is in Provence between the Alps and the Mediterranean. The main cultivation area of lavender in France is found here, an important economic sector in the region. More than 2,000 farmers harvest their lavender between mid-June and the end of August. Although the price has been rising for years, it's difficult for farmers. Plant diseases and drought lead to smaller harvests. Farmer Maurice Feschet started the lavender business 50 years ago. Every year he documents his harvest, and it's getting worse and worse.
Here you can see that only 4 flowers are open, and yet we are already in the middle of harvesting. And here we have lots of flowers that have not managed to open, which has a big impact on the amount of oil produced.
The essential oil is extracted from the flowers. Maurice notices that more and more plants are destroyed by the dryness and the changing weather. When the lavender begins to grow in spring, a late frost period follows more and more often, and this destroys the harvest. Maurice's family sells the flowers mainly as a tourist attraction. For example, for the small bags that can be put in the wardrobe. The whole family is involved in the harvest. Sanna has been continuously busy for weeks. He expects them to harvest only 15 to 16 tons this year. Last year it was 20, 10 years ago even 50.
At my age, I don't expect much from the future anymore, but with the problem growing year by year, we really have to do something for our children and our grandchildren.
When Maurice started growing lavender, the plant stood in the field for over 20 years. Today, some have died after only 4 years. The whole family lives on the farm in Grignon. For some years now, Sanna has also been keeping laying hens here. They are supposed to bring money, in addition to lavender cultivation.
This is the 3rd year in a row we have these meteorological problems. In 2017, we had 6 months without rain, 6 months in a row. In 2018, we had rain for 6 months in a row. And in 2019, we first had the cold, then too much water, and then the heat.
Every year is decisive for Maurice and his family. That's why he hopes that the lawsuit against the EU will soon be successful.
This will, of course, take a long time, a lawsuit against Europe. Well, if we were not individuals but a large group exerting considerable pressure, but our means of exerting pressure are very modest. That's why it's important to talk about it, in order to win the support of the people.
More than 200,000 people around the world have already shown their solidarity with the climate plaintiffs in a collection of signatures. And then the first decision. In Bremen, lawyer Gert Winter received the news that the lawsuit has not been admitted. The reason, not only the plaintiffs, also many others are threatened by the climate crisis.
The court actually said, you are not individually concerned. We consider that scandalous. It's a contradiction if you consider that the consequences of climate change affect many people very severely. It's a scandal that legal protection is denied if many people are hard hit.
The plaintiffs therefore filed an appeal in July, hoping for success with the next higher authority. Only when they have been admitted to court will the content of their complaint be judged. Similar cases already exist in many other countries.
There are already about 200 lawsuits worldwide with similar thrust. Well, it's a whole new wave you can see there, and there will probably be more in the future. The big question is whether the courts will be willing to take responsibility, or will they refer the matter to politics, and thus to an area that is unfortunately moving very slowly.
Sweden has received the news of the court's decision. Sanna and the other 10 plaintiff families have decided to continue anyway. Even though the climate crisis is progressing, the longer the lawsuit lasts. A case from the Netherlands gives them hope. The judges there decided that the government is not living up to its responsibilities. That's why the Netherlands must now significantly reduce its emissions of climate-damaging greenhouse gases by 2020. These young reindeer are standing near Sanna's home in a small forest in Jokkmokk. She feeds the hungry animals with the collected lichens.
Of course, it's hard every time you see a reindeer that is tired, weak, or malnourished and needs extra food. That's not a nice prospect, knowing that they're in the woods and they're not well.
The decision of the European Court of Justice on the appeal by the applicants is still pending. If this is also rejected, the climate lawsuit has finally failed. Should the court allow the suit, it would be an important success for the families. Because then, for the first time, it would be decided whether the European Union does not protect the fundamental rights of the plaintiffs sufficiently with its climate policy. Sanna has not yet given up hope.
I still have to believe that they want change. That's the only thing we're demanding. Recent events have shown that the climate debate has a high priority in the world. I hope that this will lead to a change. I definitely want to believe it. The complaint received a great deal of attention, and I am very pleased about that.
So far, the lawsuit has been successful in one way. It has further stimulated the discussion on climate protection. But whether it can really succeed in court will probably only be decided in the beginning of 2020.